Before Lordran or Drang Lake, there was Boletaria. Yes, it's Demon Souls, the prototype from which 3 Dark Souls games, and to a lesser extent Bloodborne, sprang forth. Developed by From Software and released in 2009 for the PlayStation 3, Demon Souls feels in some respects like a rough draft of elements that would be greatly refined in its successor 2 years later. Controls are nearly identical to Dark Souls, and the message and multiplayer conventions originated here as well. Visuals, on the other hand, are considerably more primitive, and the selection of weapons is far smaller. Demon Souls also uses a hub and separate maps layout, rather than the open world of Dark. That said, it's still a lot of fun. One thing I should note before we begin is that I'm playing the Asian version rather than the Japanese or US one. I imported it when it didn't look like it would be picked up for publication in the West. It's entirely in English, but veterans may notice some descriptions, items, and spells have different names, occasionally odd ones. I'll point these out when I notice them. Very well, friends, the stage is now set. Let us now plunge into the origin of Souls. I still love that intro. Really sets the tone. A broken down world where everything wants to murder you? Yep, that's a Souls game. Gets you pumped to kick some ass and get your ass kicked. Get your ass kicked a lot. It is my opinion that Demon Souls is the hardest game in the series. Every time I've played a new Souls game, I thought it was the hardest one, but that ended up being because I had not really acclimated myself to the enemies, the weapons, the lay of the land. Now that I've beaten every Souls game, and learned them pretty well, gotta go back to Demon Souls. Demon Souls will ruin your shit. We also saw some fandoms there, helping out the unfortunate knight. Unfortunately, we're not going to be able to do multiplayer. all of the official servers are shut down, and someone did kindly create a private server to keep the game going, but as near as I can tell, it doesn't actually work with the Asia version of the game, just the US and Japan. Kind of a bummer, but we'll make do. No, I mustn't. And we start out with the obligatory character creation. You all know what's gonna happen. There we go. Hey, every heroine's gotta have an origin story, right? All that is left is to choose our origin. This is your character class, and it works pretty much the same as it did in any of the following Souls games. It doesn't really determine your destiny in any particularly strong way. It only determines what your starting equipment is, and your starting soul level and stats. One thing that's a little different here is that you cannot actually see the details of your starting equipment. There's a preview under the stats there that I'm moving around now, and that shows you with your starting gear and weapon. But you can't actually see what their properties are. You'll have to wait until you get into the game proper for that. Most of them are fairly self-explanatory. This, I believe, is Temple Knight, a Crusader type. And Royal. That's what we're going to be starting out with. Some people actually consider the Royal to be broken in the early game. I don't agree with that. The Royal does have some very nice accessories that other characters can't get the equivalent of until well into the game, so you do get a little bit of a leg up at the very beginning of the game. However, as things proceed, that advantage is gonna melt away pretty damn quick. But I do want those nice accessories, so Royal it is.
King Alant XII, by channeling the power of souls, brought unprecedented prosperity to his northern kingdom of Boletaria. That is, until the colorless deep fog swept across the land. Boletaria was cut off from the outside world, and those who dared penetrate the deep fog never returned. But Valarfax of the royal twin fangs broke free from the fog and told the world of Boletaria's plight. That the old King Alant had aroused the Old One, the great beast below the Nexus, from its eternal slumber, and that a colorless fog had swept in, unleashing terrible demons. The demons hunt down men and claim their souls. Those who lose their souls also lose their minds. The mad attack the sane, and chaos reigns. Valarfax spoke of the enticing power of the demon souls. Each time a demon claims a human soul, the demon's own soul is invigorated by the life force, and the power of a mature demon soul is beyond human imagination. The legend spread quickly. Mighty warriors were drawn to the accursed land, but none have returned. Bjor of the Twin Fangs, Yurt the Silent Chief, Sage Urbane, Skurver the Wanderer, the Sixth Saint Astraea and her knight Garl Vinland, and Sage Frake the Visionary. The colorless deep fog slowly creeps beyond Boletaria's borders. Humankind faces a slow and steady extinction. The deep fog will eventually swallow all lands near and far. But Boletaria has one final hope. A lone warrior who has braved the baneful fog. Has the land found its savior? Or have the demons found a new slave?
Brave soul who fears not death. I shall guide you. So that you may lull the old one back to slumber.
And there we have the basics of the story. King Allant used souls to make his kingdom great, but in the process he awoke some sort of eldritch horror that is now spewing out fog and capturing people's souls. So, we've been brought in. Well, not really brought in. We heard about Boletaria, and we're going to see what we can do about that. The whole thing with people losing their souls and going crazy might sound a little familiar. It's very similar to Hollowing in the mainline Soul, or I should say in the Dark Souls games. Before we launch into the tutorial, let's take a quick look at our starting gear. We have a couple of two types of restorative items. Here we have the half-moon grass, a medicinal herb with the name of the lunar phase. The effective moon herbs change with the surrounding conditions. Half-moon herbs are the moon herbs that are picked when they are withered. Grass is your basic healing item in Demon Souls. We don't have Estus or blood vials or any similar thing. We just collect and munch on grass. There are quite a few types of grass, all of them some phase of the moon as it says, and they'll restore various amounts of HP. Just below that we have a Royal Lotus, the petal of the crimson flower which floats on water and heals the user from poison. This flower became famous as an ornament of the nobility because of its beauty. This is where our, our upgrade materials will go. And here's a key item that is kinda neat in that it explains something that the game doesn't really have to explain, but it does anyway. Augite of Souls, a stone that uses souls to shoot light. The light changes color based on the souls in the area. A friend of Sage Frake the Visionary, and known for its magical craftwork, it is one of Jerry's creations. From the fact that it's lightweight and easy to handle, you can tell it's widely used by travelers. This is our light source. This is why even in areas that should be pitch black, we have a little bit of a glow around us to see by. Again, the game didn't really have to account for the light source in-world, but they took the trouble to do it, and I think that's pretty neat. As for our weaponry, we start out with a rapier. They are effective against metal armor, etc., but hard to overpower shield holders, and easily parried. It can also attack while holding a shield. When used in the left hand, it's more effective than parrying, or more effective with parrying than defending. Pretty standard pointy poker. The Silver Catalyst, given only to the magicians of Jormungandr lineage. With a unique magic, it increases the user's maximum MP. Well, that pretty much says it all. Catalysts are your wands in this game. They're your spellcasting tools. This one is a little nicer than your average because it gives you a maximum MP boost. I'm really tripping over my words here, please excuse me. Our starting shield is a buckler. Its use requires a fair amount of skill. Generally, lightly equipped soldiers pair this with a rapier. We're gonna want to upgrade that as soon as possible. Just like any Souls, I favor a pretty shield-tanky approach to this game. Ammunition, we don't have any. The Silver Cornet. A crown wrought in silver. A piece of decorative equipment which is only given to the famous magicians of the distinguished Jormungandr family. By a unique technique, the user's maximum MP is increased. See, there we get another MP bump. Wizard's Clothes, this is worn by official magicians. Wizard's Gloves, same deal. And Wizard's Shoes, same deal. And finally, our rings. Alas, we only have 2 ring slots, none of the lovely 4 that we got in later Souls games. This is the Ring of a Nobleman, forged with spices. Recovers MP a little at a time. An extremely rare, if extremely delicate handicraft. I cannot talk today. This is the really nice thing that a royal gets to start out with. An MP regeneration item. It's a slow regeneration item, but still, that's a pretty nice perk starting out. Here we can see our starting stats. We start out at Soul Level 1 as a royal, unlike other classes that may start with somewhat higher soul levels. All the stats are pretty standard here, I think. World tendency, we'll get into that later. Let's see, was there anything else I wanted to look at? Oh yes, the actual stat block. Vitality and Endurance are exactly the same as they are in the Dark Soulses. Will is your attunement slots, I believe. Yes, it gives you more MP and your ability to memorize more spells. Strength and Dexterity, same as it ever was. Or same as it will be, I should say. Magic is the power of your spells. Faith is the power of your miracles. It also increases your miracle attunement capacity and your magic defense. So even if you're not doing a faith-based kind of character, it can be helpful to have a few points in this. And luck, item drops mainly. Plague resistance as well, but it's pretty trivial in its effect on that. And I think that about does it for the immediate. Let's get to tutorialing. Oh, a message. The message system did originate here in Demon's Souls, and it works pretty similar to the way that it does in all of the successor games. Wasn't broke, didn't fix it. Unfortunately, we're only going to be seeing developer messages, because, again, no multiplayer due to no server. R1 to attack. Yep. As I mentioned, the actual gameplay controls are really similar to the ones in later Souls games. Again, wasn't broke, didn't fix it. And here's our first victim. That was a Dregling. Keeps swinging his sword, even in death. You're probably noticing one of the major differences of Demon's Souls here on a technical level. The graphics really aren't as good. Everything's less detailed, and the characters and several objects have kind of a plasticky sheen to them. But it's still good enough looking. It'll get us there. We have a standard Souls dash, although one difference in Demon's Souls is that there is no jump. Oh, I should probably explain the meters, although they're nothing too different. The red meter in the upper left, that is our HP, of course. Below that we have our MP, and the green, as usual, is stamina. The little icon below that is the same thing that's making those blue lines emanate from my body. That is to indicate the effect of the fragrant ring. It just says, I'm regenerating MP. Blocking also works pretty much the same as it did, or as it will, in future Souls games. So does the lock-on and camera system, I should mention. Gotta be a little more careful. Another fine Souls tradition that did originate here. Wacky ragdolls. There's a little trick there the Dreglings like to use. They kind of launch themselves at you with a big jump attack, and as soon as they recover from that, they start swinging their sword around wildly. If you take a little too long to take advantage of that jump and whiff, the sword frenzy can... Frenzy can carve some HP off you pretty good. There's our second kind of grass. Half-moon herbs are... Oh wait, no, we're looking crescent. Crescent herbs are the moon herbs that are picked when they are very young. Even in the early game, that's going to only restore a very small amount of our HP, but even into the later game, they can be useful because they're pretty easy to come by, and when you're out of danger, you can just munch on as many crescent moon grasses as you need to top yourself up. In combat, you're generally going to want something that'll heal you a little bit quicker. Item use, nothing new under the sun. A little bit of damage there, but pretty trivial. Demon Souls is fairly lenient when it comes to fall damage. You don't tend to take a huge amount, and actually, the higher your dexterity, the less fall damage you'll take. But falling a certain distance, or falling through a kill plane, will still kill you outright. And there are some levels in which that's very likely to happen. Backstepping and rolling. Standard Souls once again. And you can do a unique attack immediately after backstepping. This guy's running at me, which means he's going to do his jump and his flail. A little early in the game to be this... careless, my god. I am unusually inarticulate today, even by my standards. That's another thing that works pretty similarly to the way we're used to. Backstabs! Get my aim right here. And here is our first, my god, Archstone. Which is the nearest thing this game has to a bonfire, and that's not very near. They're very different, and we'll look into that in a little more depth later. Yep, strong attack, we're well versed in that. Gotta get that backstab practice in. And parrying. I'm a broken record here, but it works the same way it does in most Souls games. All of them, really, unless you count Bloodborne. And just like in the other games, I'm really bad at it and won't be using it much. Well, let's see if we can pull off at least one good one. Come here, you. First try, I'm a little surprised. And you can see the kind of damage that does. Even better than backstabs. It'd be great if I could use them on the regular, but again, I don't think that's gonna happen. This guy looks a little tougher than your average. These blue-eyed knights do hit pretty hard, and they can defend quite well too. Sometimes they'll really turtle up behind their shield, and it's hard to get them to come out from behind it. One other thing that's a potential issue with them, if you give them room to heal, they will. They can munch on an unlimited supply of grass. Unlike your own. Also, thinking about defending enemies, I should mention that there's no kick or deflecting move like in the future games. You just don't have any reliable guard breaking ability. The enemies, it's not the case for them. All kind of enemies have moves that can instantly knock away your shield, but you don't get one. Yep, we can still two-hand our weapons. Now this guy's gonna play turtle. Let's break out our catalyst and try that soul arrow spell that we start out with. The shield still removes a fair amount of it. Of the damage, I should say. Come on now. As you can see there, it is possible to break an enemy's guard, you just can't do it with a single move. Just kind of have to overcome their shield stability. Nothing new there. Or there. Yet another thing that originated in this game, but was kept throughout the series. The joy of smashing things with a roll. Once again, I'm getting careless awful early here. That soul I picked up. Soul items in this are just like they are in the other games, yet another thing that they didn't really change at any point. The description is weirdly translated, though. Turns user into a soul. No, it doesn't. The remnants of the nameless soldier's spirit, whose soul was still in his corpse. Using this item turns the user into a soul. Again, it doesn't. Shooting this into a corpse, it eventually becomes food for demons. In that case. So yeah, it's a soul item. You use it and it gives you a certain amount of souls. Conveniently, lots of enemies do drop various types of grasses in this game. It's not as generous as Bloodborne is with the blood vials, but it's enough to get you by a fair amount of the time. I don't think I want to know what's cooking. Especially given all the bloodstains surrounding. I mean, it could be animal blood, but I have my doubts. Not gonna catch me this time. Fog gates. Yet another thing the veteran Soulsketeer will be familiar with. I believe there is an item here. And through this fog gate, you can see a little glimpse of our obligatory tutorial boss. Unlike, say, the Stray Demon, you are not expected to win this fight. If you get killed, the game will just proceed onward. If you don't get killed, then you'll get a few extra items, and then get your shit promptly ruined by that scary double-jawed dragon from the intro. So either way, you're gonna die in the tutorial. It's just a question of whether you can overcome the Vanguard here, or if the dragon kills you. Generally speaking, I do get killed by the Vanguard and don't win the tutorial boss fight. I'll give it my best shot, and I have done it on occasion, but his attacks, pretty much all of them will either one-shot you or very close to it. He telegraphs the hell out of them, but that can actually screw me up because the attacks can come slower than I'm expecting. I believe magic damage will serve us a little better here, so we'll start out with the Catalyst. Use up our MP there if we don't get killed first. Let's get to it. Boy, it does have some range. High frames when rolling are another thing that works quite the way it does in every other Souls. The timing is quite similar. He got me. Not ready to give up yet, though. Sometimes if you get behind him in just the right place, you can lock him into doing a butt crush over and over again. And the butt crush is very easy to avoid and to punish. Oh shit. Little late on my roll there. And I didn't even get him to do the butt crush once. Alas.
Soul of the lost withdrawn from its vessel. Let strength be granted so the world might be mended. Soul of the lost withdrawn from its vessel. Let strength be granted so the world might be mended. So the world might be mended. This is the Nexus. It holds together the northern land of Boletaria. Thou canst not exit the Nexus, but each of the 5 Archstones will connect them to it.
You've died, and your soul alone has been captured by the Nexus. You cannot escape the Nexus. Yep, we're stuck here. Our soul is bonded to the Nexus, and we can't stray very far beyond, except to the previously mentioned Archstones. However, by taking demon souls, you can take back your physical body. And there's the Nexial binding that keeps us stuck here. We should give that a look. The symbol of those imprisoned in the Nexus. Having this ties you to the Nexus, and even if you lose your physical body, you cannot die, and your soul remains trapped in the Nexus. Also, the Nexial binding sends the user back to the Nexus, but all souls are lost. so it's pretty much the dark side. Just an item you can use if you're stuck somehow and there's nothing around to kill you. It'll kill you automatically, and back you go to the Nexus. Pretty nice place. It was mentioned briefly, but you have a body form and a soul form in this game. We were in body form throughout the tutorial up to the boss fight, but now as we have been murdered, we're in soul form. Kind of the difference between being fully revived to human or being hollowed to various extents in the other Souls games. When you are in body form, you have your full HP bar. When you are in soul form, if you look to the upper left, your max HP is cut in half. Pretty harsh, and a pretty harsh way to start the game. There is a ring that we'll be finding fairly early on that will allow you to keep more of your maximum HP when you're in soul form, I think about 75%. And that's pretty much always gonna be on one of our fingers. Dying in body form while you're in an actual combat area can be kinda bad. So typically we're going to want to go exploring in our soul form. A little more on why that is in a short while. For now, let's meet some of the other inmates. Actually, before we meet the inmates, we've got a bunch of developer messages down here that will cover some things that weren't covered in the tutorial. Most of them standard stuff, but we'll go through them real quick anyway. Without stamina, your guard can be broken, same as usual. Stamina works like we're used to. Required skill level, that just means, again, same as in the other Souls games, if you do not have the stats to properly wield a weapon, then it's not going to work very well. Over the equipment weight limit. That reminds me of something else. Equipment weight limit works, say it again with me, the same as in the other Souls games, but there's not just equip burden in this game. There's also inventory burden. What does the game call it again? There it is, load. That is the maximum weight of everything you're carrying. Yep, that's right, in Demon Souls, not only does your active equipment load you down, but everything in your inventory does as well. This was dropped with Dark Souls Onward, and I didn't miss it. And two-handing. Can't guard very well when two-handing. All pretty familiar stuff. Our spellcasting tools in this game are talismans and catalysts. The message system. We can play around with it a little, but there's not going to be anyone to read them. World tendency. This will be kind of important. After we read these three, I'll take a moment to explain it. If the soul is closer to black, the demons are quite dangerous. If the soul is closer to white, the demon's power is weakened. In our menu here, we have World Tendency. Each of these 5 nodes that are basically the levels attached to the hub here, each of them has a World Tendency. They start out, all of them neutral, so they're just kind of gray right now, not really glowing or anything one way or the other. As World Tendency increases or decreases, it'll move either toward white or black. And there are special world events that happen when a World Tendency is completely white or completely black. I can't promise that I'll get all of these world events, because manipulating World Tendency in this game can be kind of tricky. But the main things you need to know are that killing a boss will move the World Tendency towards white, getting killed in body form will move it toward black. So that's why we don't want to walk around in body form too much. We don't want the world tendencies heading towards black from us dying all the time and making the game actually harder. In the middle, that statue-looking thing, that is our character tendency. If you do naughty things like killing NPCs, your character tendency will move towards black. If you help people out, or I think also win boss fights, then it'll move your character tendency towards white. This does not affect as much. There are a couple of pure black events. Actually, I think there's just one pure black event. Can't remember if pure white character tendency really does anything, although there is a weapon that is affected by your character tendency. Somewhat complicated stuff, but we'll make sense of it as we go on. You can the death of the warrior in the other world? Canning death is a good way to preserve it. Soul pile recovery. Again, familiar stuff. White phantoms, those are the ghosts in the other souls that you would see just snippets of people playing elsewhere on the server. Again, sadly a thing that we cannot do since we have no server. Weapon whose durability gets low can be repaired by the blacksmith's father? That's a really weird translation. There's no blacksmith's father, you just do it with actual blacksmiths. Weapons break. And yes, soul form, our HP is halved. Harsh. Now we can start meeting the locals.
I'm Stockpile Thomas. When the scourge came, I didn't know what hit me. When I came to, I found myself here, in the Nexus. My wife and daughter fell victim to the demons. But I would be worthless in battle. At the very least, I hope to lend my assistance to you brave slayers of demons. I would be happy to lighten your load and look after any excess baggage.
Stockpile Thomas. He's a pretty nice guy, and a very important one, because he's where you can dump your items that you're not currently using. And since everything you're carrying does contribute to your inventory burden, then he becomes very important indeed, especially with things like upgrade materials, which can get quite heavy. This is one guy you do not want to aggro, because in Demon's Souls, once you upset an NPC, they stay upset. There is no way to absolve yourself of sins. Anyone who hates you will hate you for all eternity.
When the scourge came, I abandoned my wife and daughter and fled like a madman. When I came to, I was in the Nexus. I haven't dared venture outside these walls since. I wish I could do more, but I am ignorant of the world beyond these walls. That candle maiden cared for me during my first days in the Nexus. She says very little, but has a kind heart. She's just the age my young daughter would have been. The poor, poor girl, trapped here with her eyes occluded by wax. If only something could be done to help her. If only something could be done to help her.
So Tommy Boy here's a little bit of a coward. He left his wife and child to die, but what could he really have done? And he makes up for it by being a real sweetheart throughout the game.
Best of luck to you.
You new here? Do you hear from my services? My name's Baldwin. Just an ordinary blacksmith. It's simple. Just bring me all the souls you can. In trade, I'll give you weapons, or forge ones you already have. With your souls, I can eke out a living, and with my weapons, you can go on living. Not a bad deal, huh?
Baldwin here is our convenience blacksmith. There are only 2 blacksmiths in the game, and Baldwin, because he's here in the Nexus, he's easy to see for repairs and things like that, and basic equipment upgrading. The other blacksmith can do some things that Baldwin cannot, but we have to kind of wander off into the field to meet up with him. Baldwin, anytime you're in the Nexus, just pop on over. Upgrading and repairing equipment works pretty similarly to the way it does in Dark Souls. Different upgrade materials, though, and a different weapon upgrading system. We can also buy a few things here. Crescent moon grass, we've got some of that. Fresh spice is a sweet-smelling perfume which soothes the soul. There I go again. It is used by the royalty as an item of luxury, and by the magician as an item of utility. Your basic MP restorative. And Ed's Grindstone. Stonefang... Damn it! Stonefang Blacksmith. Blacksmith's... God damn it! Blacksmith Ed's Sharpening Stone. Reduces the wear on the right-hand weapon, and restores its durability. So, repair powder. He's got some basic weapons. A shield that really wouldn't be a big improvement on our current one. And some basic ammunition.
Perhaps you've already heard, but there's another blacksmith at the entrance of Stonefang Mine. He's an eccentric old man, but he knows his trade well. He's the only sane one left in a town of soul-starved men. If you do meet him... yeah, well, forget it. That stubborn old ne'er-do-well will just ignore you. There aren't enough blacksmiths in this temple to handle all the work. Only certain ores can be used to forge weapons, but you'll just have to make do. And be thankful that I'm still of good health. And be thankful that I'm still of good health.
The other blacksmith he mentions at Stonefang is the Ed that was mentioned in the repair item description. Baldwin is kinda cranky, and Eb is even more cranky. Sadly, there are no Andre equivalents, no blacksmiths that'll actually be nice to you in this game.
No interest, eh? I can tell you're not gonna last long here.
Nice to meet you, too.
Oh my. How has this happened? Has God abandoned us for failing to show proper respect to King Alant? Oh, Mbasa. Oh, Mbasa.
So, a religious type here. We'll learn a little more of what she's about as things progress. Umbasa is the Boletarian equivalent to Verrier Nox, as you might well have guessed. Since that Candle Maiden doesn't seem to be anywhere around right now, we've just got one more person to talk to.
Well, you slipped through the fissure too, did you? You came for demon souls? Or to save this land and be remembered as a hero? Hunting for demons? Try one of the Archstones. Now, go. That is why you came, is it not? To this accursed Boletaria?
Every soul's gotta have a crestfallen. Yep, that's another tradition that started out here. As for these Archstones, as was previously discussed, they connect you to the nodes, which are the actual separated levels of the game. Each of these nodes has 3 sections. 2 normal maps, and then one that's just a big boss for that particular node. I'll probably end up calling them worlds a lot, it's a habit. Not strictly accurate, because they're not different worlds, they're just other parts of the Boletarian country. But it's just a habit I tend to have. Anyway, this here is the Archstone of the Small King, which is the only one we can actually look at in any detail right now. And that would take us to the Boletarian Palace, a huge stone castle in the heart of the northern kingdom of Boletaria. Hungry soldiers whose souls have been stolen by demons attack trespassers, and a terrible dragon nests there. As things stand, the only place we have access to is the Boletarian Palace, but if we beat a boss there, we'll be able to move on to the second node of Boletaria. That's pretty much how the Archstones work. Within a node, you can move around freely. That is sort of limited open world-ish, but every node exists separately from the others, just the different sections of them are connected together. There are 4 other Archstones that we can't actually access or even look carefully at right now, but we can take a quick peek at just what their style is. Here we have the Archstone of the Burrow King. Dwarven craftsman looking kind of guy. Archstone of the Tower Queen. This is a broken Archstone. I believe somewhere it's referred to as the Archstone leading to the Land of the Giants. In practice, it's the Archstone of Cut Content. There was going to be a 6th node, which I believe was supposed to be a wintry one, snow and what have you. And if I recall correctly, there are some remaining assets, unused assets, on the disk that were supposed to be part of this other Archstone, but presumably for development time reasons, it never happened. So the Archstone here is just smashed. Never has any story significance, you can never do anything with it. Here we have the Archstone of Shadowmen. Looks like kind of a cleric thing going there. And last, and quite possibly least, is the Archstone of the Chieftain, who's rocking what looks like a Plague Doctor mask. Very interesting places, and we will be exploring all of them. Well then, folks, I see we're just a little bit shy of the 1 hour mark for this video, and it's probably a good time to hang it up for now. It's all been tutorial and prologue stuff. We haven't actually seen any of the proper action yet, but the good news is, when we start the next episode, all the preliminaries will mostly be dispensed with, and we can go right to work. Just head on over to that Archstone of the Small King and take on the Boletarian Castle. If you are new to Demon's Souls, I hope this little taste of the Proto-Souls game has whetted your interest, and that you will be joining me next episode when we get into the shit. Until then, as ever, I thank you very much for watching. This is Un, and Salad, signing off. Today's freshly made salad has been brought to you by Justin Carpenter, Nolden, Zangamarth, Anonymous Benefactor, John Madigan, Sanguine Games, Misha Van Doren, Frank Grizzy, Tim J., Lolo De Puzzlo, Joshua C. Ritchie, Jared C. Rice, Sonic Rose, EX Potemkin, Alicia Goranson, Megasaurus, DG Jono, Doug Russell, Dodecalope, Patrick Bellinger, Jarogue, Martin Schallenmakers, Mayo the Hedgefox, Hildegard Argelmach, IGV, Jazel, Joseph Hall, Hot Mayo Sandwich, Dan Larson, Electric Keat, K. Ivan Rupert, Tiny Shopkeeper, Charlie Dunst, Kikoskia, Kobo4231, Alex Beyer, Yuka Takeuchi Fan, Chaotic Narrative, McCaffrey Crandall, Mystery Accent, Lakota, Meiyan Ling, Renaman, and other OG patrons. Folks, your support is really above and beyond the call, and I appreciate it immensely. To every subscriber, commenter, and viewer out there, your thoughts and presence are very much a source of support as well, and I thank you for them. Be well, everyone, beware the Ides of March, and I'll see you soon.